Form 1099. Form 1099 is one of several IRS tax forms. See the variants section used in the United States to prepare and file an information return to report various types of income other than wages, salaries, and tips, for which Form W-2 is used instead. The term information return is used in contrast to the term tax return, although the latter term is sometimes used colloquially to describe both kinds of returns. The form is used to report payments to independent contractors, rental property income, income from interest and dividends, sales proceeds, and other miscellaneous income. Blank 1099 forms and the related instructions can be downloaded from the IRS website. Significance for payee's tax return. Returns, payee's tax return, Payees use the information provided on the 1099 forms to help them complete their own tax returns. In order to save paper, payers can give payees one single combined Form 1099 that lists all of their 1099 transactions for the entire year. Taxpayers are usually not required to attach Form 1099s to their own federal income tax returns unless the Form 1099 includes a report for federal income tax withheld by the payer from the related payments. The issuance or non-issuance of a Form 1099 in a particular case is not determinative of the tax treatment required of the payee. Each payee taxpayer is legally responsible for reporting the correct amount of total income on his or her own federal income tax return, regardless of whether a Form 1099 was filed. For a variety of reasons, some Form 1099 reports may include amounts that are not actually taxable to the payee. A typical example is Form 1099 as for reporting proceeds not gained from real estate transactions. The Form 1099 as preparer will report the sales proceeds without regard to the amount of the taxpayer's basis in the real estate sold. Basis is usually the amount of cost incurred by the taxpayer when he or she acquired the property, perhaps years before the sale. The taxpayer's basis amount is deducted by the taxpayer on his or her own tax return from the proceeds amount to determine the gain, if any, on the sale. In any case, the payee taxpayer remains responsible for filing an accurate federal income tax return. Filing requirements. Each payer must complete a Form 1099 for each covered transaction. 3 or 4 copies are made, one for the payer, one for the payee, one for the IRS, and one for the state tax department if required. Payers who file 250 or more Form 1099 reports must file all of them electronically with the IRS. If the fewer than 250 requirement is met and paper copies are filed, the IRS also requires the payer to submit a copy of Form 1096, which is a summary of information forms being sent to the IRS. However, 1096 is not required if 1099 form filed electronically. The returns must be filed with the IRS and sent to payees by the end of January immediately following the year for which the income items or other proceeds are paid. The law provides various dollar amounts under which no Form 1099 reporting requirement is imposed. For some variants of Form 1099, for example, no filing is required for payees who receive less than $600 from the payer during the applicable year. For Form 1099 MISC in particular, businesses are required to submit a Form 1099 for every contractor paid more than $600 for services during a year. This requirement usually does not apply to corporations receiving payments. See the table in the variance section for specific minimum amounts for each form. The form is used to report income, proceeds, etc. only on a calendar year, January 1 through December 31 basis, regardless of the fiscal year used by the payer or payee for other federal tax purposes. Variants. As of 2015, several versions of Form 1099 are used, depending on the nature of the income transaction. One notable use of Form 1099 is to report amounts paid by a business, including nonprofits, to a non-corporate U.S. resident independent contractor for services in IRS terminology. The ubiquity of the form has also led to use of the phrase 1099 workers or the 1099 economy. In 2011, the requirement was extended by the Small Business Jobs Act of 2010 to payments made by persons who receive income from rental property. Form 1099 is also used to report interest 1099 int, dividends 1099 div, sales proceeds 1099b, and some kinds of miscellaneous income 1099 misc. Blank 1099 forms and the related instructions can be downloaded from the IRS website. The following table provides information for each variant. Note that for those who have electronic filing of Form 1099 setup, the due date for the IRS is March 31 rather than the last day of February. History. The War Revenue Act of 1917 required every entity to report certain payments made to another entity. Payments subject to reporting included payments of interest, rent, salaries, wages, premiums, annuities, compensation, remuneration, emoluments, or other fixed or determinable gains, profits, and income. Payments to an entity were required to be reported if the payments totaled at least $800 during the year. The payer was required to report the name and address of the payee and the total amount of payments on Form 1099 and sent to the Internal Revenue Service by March 1 of the year following the payments. The payer was required to include Form 1096, a letter of transmittal and affidavit certifying the accuracy of each Form 1099.